Oh, for the love of Christ. Bloody plug's come out. Oh well, better plug it back in, I suppose. Ready yet, Colin?
Is it not? Okay.
Now we're recording.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to FFSI. If I can get it out without choking on my coffee. Tonight, I am joined by a panel of luminaries and the boss, Mr. AWK.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the show. We'd like to welcome our guests, LousieXsparrow, Jim the Viking, and PJ Maybe.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
And tonight we're talking about words because the thing is, me and Colin are in the process of trying to get my book sorted at the moment and hopefully get it published. But you've got some ridiculous words out there, haven't we all? If you get the one word that comes to my head is
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. It's a very long word. Spell it.
I know.
I'll pass on that.
IT.
What the hell were they thinking when they came out with that word?
That it was very hard to say.
Biggest tongue twister ever.
It's not the longest word, but smiles is the longest word. It's got a mile between the two S's. Sorry, I can't help it. I sometimes like saying.
I see the granddad jokes are starting early.
Yeah.
He's getting in practice.
Yeah, and it's words. We can have a joke with words. That's a good thing about words. They're humorous.
Yeah. It's just when you got the tongue twister type words that make me laugh.
Yeah. I'm not very good at tongue twisters.
Yeah, it's just okay. You're all familiar with a certain town in Wales, right?
The one that ends in go go go.
Yeah.
You mean St. Mary's?
Cardiff.
Ridiculous word. Okay, if I just bring this up for a second. Here we go. Who's going to pronounce this?
No, me. I can do the last part. That's
St.
it.
Mary's Church in the hollow of the White Hazel near the whirlpool lantern shallow of the Red Cave.
You're supposed to say the top part, Colin.
You didn't say that. You said, who can pronounce this?
I'm not even going to try. That just looks as if I'm actually clearing my throat.
No. That looks like my email response at work when someone is asking a question they shouldn't be asking.
I could do part of it, but I can't remember what it is. Jan Pulgin Igil Gogrech. There's a blonde in there somewhere, which I can't remember what it was. Yanti Cilia Gogogoch.
It's just the fact that they have 4 L's in consecutive order here. It's like, how do you pronounce that?
Yi, or it's the double L is L-Y. It's just like Yi.
But it's a quadruple L. It's not just a double L.
But it's a double L.
Or Yi, or something like that.
I have a feeling they're cheating.
Yeah. They're Welsh, of course they're cheating.
Apologies to the Welsh viewers out there.
Don't worry, we can translate it in every known language, including Welsh.
You can have a crack at it, or
I have no chance. I'm not. Apart from the land fair, the rest of it is gobbledygook right up until the go go go. That's it. I've tried it in the past, and I've never, even with it all broken up into syllables, I've never managed it once.
It is what, 73 characters long, isn't it?
It's something like that, yes. But I'm terrible at it, and I know fine well that there is no way on earth I'll even get half of it.
Actually, what I find even more interesting about that with the translation, is it shows you how places get named.
That's true.
Yeah.
Because there's, I can't remember which, there's places, there are some places in this country which actually mean something hill, or river, water, or something.
Right.
Because you get the words will be hill in something like Celtic and Anglo-Saxon, and then hill in modern English.
Yeah, because somebody will hear the name of it. Like, for instance, you'll have the Valley of Glencoe. Glen is a valley, so you
Yeah.
got a Valley Co.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's stuff like that. But then again, you get some weird names all over the place. Like you've got in Scotland, you've got Echo Feckin.
Same to you.
Exactly. But what does it mean? No idea. But it's one hell of a name.
It means
But
your
it
voice
sounds
bloody well comes back at you.
But yeah, I mean, some of the Scottish names I have problems actually pronouncing, and I know the syllables of them. But Welsh, not a chance. I wouldn't even try it. That's the problem, because that doesn't look like words to me. Because you've got words that we wouldn't expect, like the four L's, or you've got the CHWYR. How would you pronounce that? I have no idea. It's things like that when you've got words or letters together, you would expect vowels, and there's like 6 or 10 consonants in a row. You've got RPWLLGWYNGYLLG before you hit. That's between 2 vowels. How can you pronounce that?
But some of the combinations actually make a different syllable.
Yes, exactly. But that's what I'm saying. It's the fact is we're so used to modern English, trying to actually understand how you would pronounce those ones. If it's like when you're trying to say something, like a lot of people say like a loch, they'll say loch because the way they read it, it's Loch Lomond. It's not. It's Loch Lomond. It's the pronunciation. Same there. A Welsh speaker would be able to rattle that off because they've got the understanding of it. But the rest of us, it's just a load of letters put together. And unfortunate. I'm the same with French and German and any other language.
I'm just wondering how much will you get? Well, how many points will you get this on the Scrabble board? That's a question.
Well, if you've
You
got that
see?
many letters, that means you've been cheating.
Yeah.
If I'm going to be honest, I don't even think there are that many tiles in Scrabble. I think there's only like 70 tiles in Scrabble in total.
Not of all those letters, there aren't that many L's.
No.
Or it's like 4, 6, 10, 11, at least 11 that I can see quickly.
If you actually had a Welsh language Scrabble, you'd probably have to have one tile would be for double L, like, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Probably, but you still need a bag, like Santa Claus bag, to make sure you had room for it.
You need a bag of holding.
Yes.
Exactly. Well, I've been to Wales many times, and it's absolutely lovely and gorgeous.
Oh,
place.
it's gorgeous. Snowdon is
Yeah.
just it's beautiful. I've been down up there.
Snowdonia,
I
yeah.
think I've got.
I will have to admit, I will probably never ever be able to learn that language.
I've got.
It's like the cat. What happens when you shut it? That's to me Welsh.
Yeah.
I think I've got at least 3, maybe 4 shows in Wales this year, so I should have to brush up.
Ask a Welsh speaker how to actually pronounce that.
And then make sure you take a recording because you might need to practice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I want to. I'd like to learn. I mean, for professional for a little bit of medieval Welsh. To pick that up from my Welsh brethren when we were doing God's work of shooting French knights.
Well, anyway, is there any other like particular words that you can't really pronounce?
We can't tell you because we can't pronounce them.
No, right.
That's
Well,
a
if you
very, very
can-
fair point.
Anything
That's a
in
very
Czech.
good point. It's
Try
not.
it. Yeah, go on,
Sorry, I
So-
was going to say it's one of those things that unless you actually are constantly aware of it, because you think about it, most language, like if somebody will say things like, "Do you know what this word means?" Yes, but if they say, "Give us another word for this," see, try to think of all those words. That's the thing. So when you're trying to think of something you can't pronounce because you don't use it, it's one of those things you don't really.
I was actually going to go for something far more simple. Unless you actually have been on this island, if you look at TV shows across the globe, everybody's trying to fully pronounce the Worcester sauce, the Worcestershire sauce. And it's taken me a long time to be able to actually get through all of that, how it should be fully said. But here on this isle, it's just Worcester sauce.
Yep. It's one of those things, I suppose. But then again, you look at language or dialects of language, like brown sauce. Very straightforward, but it's brown sauce.
Hey, nay, brain cow.
Who knew brown coo? On yonder hill there stood a coo. It's no there new, it must have shifted.
I didn't know a brown coo. I never knew brown coo. Who's brown coo?
Yeah, but it's the dialects as well. You think, but I used to I stayed up north for a while, and some of the language up there, and I'm from Scotland, born and bred in Scotland, and I'm sitting there going, huh?
When you say
the Lynn and Klein had the Lynn and Klein, you know what I mean, they get married and she's Kevin. Huh? What did she? The Lynn and Klein, the boy and the girl, they got married and she's caffing. She's expecting. She's having a baby. And I'm sitting there going, what did they just say? And it's simple. They two are just get married and are having a baby. But when you hear certain language from different areas in the British Isles.
Yeah.
Exactly, and just a stone's throw away from each other as well. When we're talking about growing up north and the counterpoint to the Welsh, shall we say, extended language, up north where I grew up, we barely used anything but vowels, and it was like, in the lake there's an island. That's what I just said. And it was just vowels.
Whereas we were similar, but we just used expletives.
But that's the thing. That far north, you can't tell if someone is swearing at you, wanting to buy you a pint, or asking you out on a date.
Welcome to Scotland.
Get it for you, wee bassa.
Get it for you. Billy Connolly.
Excellent. If you want
Billy Connolly made a sketch of that, as you said, the Get it for you. It could mean anything. And Yabasa could mean anything. It could mean have a nice day. Get it for you.
There's a wee pretty bunch of wee daisies.
You think about it, language has actually been the jokes. Like Chick Murray used to do one. I was walking down the street in my kilt. How the street got into my kilt, I don't know. I was having a biscuit and a woman said, would you throw my dog a bit? So I picked up and threw it across the road. It's taking language and you're taking it. It's not funny, but you're taking it literally, and then it becomes
funny
humorous.
depending on the scenario.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not funny because you're taking it literally, but because you can take it so many different ways, it makes it humorous. Throw my dog a bit, no problem. So I threw it across the road, and it's simple. It's just I do that as well. I constantly do that. When somebody says something to me, if they say something, it can be taken 4 or 5 different ways. I'll always take it the worst.
I think there's probably at least 2 different sort of sources of humour. You've got the humour of it happened to someone else, not to me. Which is relief in a way, and you've got the humour of what the totally unexpected change which is that sort of thing. You know exactly what's happening. You think, what? And it's total distraction simply by using the same words, but as you say, literally rather than the way they're normally meant.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. With
something
languages,
stand-up comedians use frequently is they repeat it in threes. So they open the show when they mention a word or an event twice with 2 stories. Then they carry on with the show. And then at the very end, just before they close the curtain, and there I was, and this happened to me. And it's just that surprise and that self-deprecating joke, but it is that repeat of 3. So you get the joke, you get what is funny, and then it's extra funny because it happened to him or someone in a story he's just telling, or she's just telling.
Well, there's something about threes. It's, I mean, you get, I mean, for example, in some, I mean, I've recently caught up reading several of Jim Butcher's. I hope you've lost the boss a minute.
Yep.
Jim Butcher's Dresden Files books, which are urban. If anyone's that, they're urban fantasy, magic, real magic, and you say something in the areas, particularly in the area of the fairy and the like, which is quite a bit in English, in certain sections of, for example, English folklore. You say something 3 times, you call someone 3 times. And you think you've got Christianity. 3
Judas
people
denying him 3 times.
Yeah, Judas. Peter denies him 3 times. 3 people crucified together. 3 days. Christ is dead. 3 days. That's 3 examples of 3 on effectively 1 story.
Yeah, but you've also got the aspect that even Hollywood's done it. What is it? Is it Sandman? I know the Sandman. Candyman.
Candyman,
Yeah. It's, you say it 3 times. Bloody Mary, historical.
Yeah.
You say the name 3 times. It's meant to appear. So there's the 3 is a big thing. It's 9 3 threes.
Yeah, it's an odd thing. Maybe it's something to do with the fact that if you say something, you repeat it, and the second repeat helps settle it in the mind. Perhaps there's something there that is fact, but if you start doing it after 3 times, it starts getting, oh, will you shut up hammering it in, sort of thing.
Yeah. And but there's certain things you shouldn't say it 3 times, like I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you. Yeah, I mean,
I'm not sure you would get the second one out before that happened.
Well, yeah, you don't do that in Islam.
See, that's the thing. But that's a fallacy, but it's based on the 3 as well. And it is that aspect of it, is the 3 part comes in more. People, if you had said you only need to say it 4 times, people would say that's silly. But because you say you take 3 times, it's the 3. It is the thing that actually makes it more believable, and it's because 3 is such a powerful number.
Yeah, that's the first of. And of course, if you get 1 as a number or a unit, or the first multiple, it's
the same as 7. A lot of the 7 is based, believe it or not, on the 3. I know it sounds silly. I heard that, I can't even remember where I heard it. It was years back, and I thought, how can 3 and 7 be related? And they're saying it's because you've got 1 person who makes a decision above the 3 and 3. So if it's a split vote, you'll always have the chairman who will not vote unless it's a tie, 3 and 3. Whereas if it's any other way, the chairman doesn't need to vote. So if there's there's 7 people in a thing, the chairman or chairperson doesn't vote unless it's a tie, which is 3 and 3. Which I thought, is that somebody just dragged it up because they're adding 3 in? But you think about it, 7s are globally is a lucky number for certain things.
Well,
it is quite a powerful number for certain things. However, is it based on the fact is the seventh person actually doesn't do anything unless you've got 2 blocks of 3?
I think it's probably coming down to a little bit of superstition and mythology, but I think most words probably come for a common understanding that this word means this or entails this kind of thing. Pardon. But I think it's not just the understanding of what it means. So if I take the word, say, sky, as in heaven, people immediately have hundreds of different thoughts. Some think blue, some think, well, especially in this island, we think rain. But clouds, stars, but also gods, mythology, star signs. And that's just from one word that it expands into all of that.
Yep.
Why do you think
And it's
that
also a 3-letter word.
Oh, but do you think the seven thing? You think if you
Mhm.
go back, it must go back a long way because, as far as I'm aware, every single culture that counts time has a 7-day week. It doesn't matter if you're using the Christian calendar, in which it's 2022, in the Jewish calendar, where I think we're somewhere in the 5,800s now.
Yep.
Islam is going to be somewhere around the 1400s. Other calendars, they all, I think, seem to use a 7-day week.
I do find it amusing, though, that the Christian calendar, the weekdays are basically all the Norse gods.
Yeah, they are.
But again, easy to remember, easy to understand, easy to have a connotation to it.
You start with Saturn. You've got one Roman. You start off with Moon Day. Then you've got TIW, Woden, Thor, and Freya. Then I think you then go into Roman for Saturn, for Saturday, and then Sunday for Sun.
Mhm.
But yeah, we've got the majority of them are, as you say, are Norse derivatives, Norse deity derivatives.
I believe actually all of them are, but then it comes down to that split. Did this god or mythology actually exist before the Vikings? But I just did a quick Google for it, and you have the Viking hieroglyphics, whatever they call the runes, for all of them, and they're basically referring back to different gods they had. Yes, people know about Odin and Thor, but Frey, Munin, Tyr, and I keep forgetting who is.
I was going to say what's so Monday you think might be from Moonin, from one of the ravens.
Yes.
So where would Saturn and Sunday come from then?
Laugardagar is the actual name. The English translation, or the Danish English translation, has become the washing day. So it's a bit tricky. But yeah, the Sunday is essentially the Sunnudagar, which is the Sunday or the sun's day.
Oh, right. So Saturday, the only one maybe.
Saturday
So one named after
in
an owl.
Viking and the more modern. So in Old Norse, it's Laugardagar. And if you go for the more Danish, which kind of melted into the English because of the conflicts around 10,000s, it was Vaskedagen, which basically means washing day.
Isn't that a type of ice cream?
It could probably be
Häagen-Dazs.
Häagen-Dazs.
Häagen-Dazs Day, yeah.
Häagen-Dazs.
Yeah.
That's what you have on a Saturday.
All right. I just want to bring up something because I just got copied this off a website, and these are the 20 most difficult words to pronounce in English. So I would like you all to read it up. Jim's already brought up one word, so we don't include that. This is what they've got.
Colonel.
Colonel Rooster, mischievous, drought.
Quinoa. Next one's yours.
I don't know. Does it sound like what it says?
Onomatopoeia.
Scissors.
Enome. What's that one?
Anemone.
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 Got that right.
It's one of those water creatures you don't want to
Yeah.
step on.
An anemone. And then you've got an isthmus.
Isthmus.
An isthmus. Isthmus. There is squirrel. Right, I've missed one. What was the other one?
Orpheol.
Ornithologist.
Ornithologist.
Squirrel. Indigenous. Successful. Sixth in phenomenon.
Ignominious. I believe that one is.
Ignominious.
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 What did I say? I just flew through it. Rural and specific. But see, I would say half of them, yes, maybe they're quite. It's only because the reading of them, because they're not in words that you would see, but things like temperature, often rural, specific, those are normal words. I wouldn't see how they would be classed as being difficult
No,
to
I
say.
wouldn't. No.
The other ones.
Sadly, with my proximity to London, I do hear, shall we say, absolute butchering of even such common word as OF, and how it's often misused when they're trying to like say something. It's like, my brain can't even connect how you use the word of instead of a completely different word that make a completely different meaning to the entire sentence structure.
That's only because they've actually learned English from the French policeman in Allo Allo.
Oh yeah.
Hey, don't knock hello. I grew up on that stuff.
Yeah, I know. I quite liked it as well. Listen very carefully. I shall say this on the bus. Good morning.
What they were actually doing with that was they were taking the mickey out of a trope which is very difficult to get around, where whenever you see, you always see the old World War II films or whatever, and you always get, whenever a non-English character or a character is supposed to be speaking a non-English language, but obviously, I mean, something that we're that as historical reenactors is an anachronism that everyone is very familiar with. They have to be speaking in the film. They have to be speaking English.
Yes.
So how do you get around the fact?
Yes, they're meant to be German.
They're speaking German, but with English. Because, so you do it. So you do it with a really bad, with a really bad German accent. They pronounce English words as the Germans would, because the Germans pronounce their letters differently. Yes. Except, of course, a German speaking German would be speaking German as
proper
I forgot what the actor's name. No, I forgot what the actor's name was. Put it in the Guns and Never Own. Ich spreche Deutsch. Perfect. They'd be speaking it properly.
Yeah. Whereas some of his nine speakings he does. Nine parlez-vous français and don't speak English. So I'm Scottish. I can actually say all three of those.
No hablo inglés. Or no hablo español.
I'm feeling perfectly happy when there is some, shall we say, less pleasant individual coming up to me and asking me questions, and I can just completely switch to a language. It's extremely unlikely that people on this island are speaking.
But Jim, that also works with speaking the language. The difference is you notch it up a bit. Like, for instance, if somebody really annoys you, then you can actually start down fast and clear. So you just basically and you just basically put pauses in the wrong place, or you stutter a wee bit here and there, but you can still say the sentence, and people look at you as if to say, "What's he saying?" And it's Russ Abbott did it. He used to do it. Yeah. Remember, he used to do his "Hey, you, Jimmy," to make it sound as if he was actually speaking, but he was saying nothing. But you can do that as well because. What was his name? Dickie Bird. He used to pause and take out parts of his language. Norman Collier used to do it. he would.
Yeah.
Not what in.
Yeah, it's things like that. So you don't even need to kick. You can actually just speed up the language, because I found if I'm in England and people say, "Could you slow down?" and I'm sitting there thinking, I'm actually speaking normally. So if I speed it up a wee bit, it's a case of, and it's that type of thing. So you can play with the language still without even actually changing the language. But that's the dialects across, not the dialects, the dialect.
Yep.
Because
It's all the Daleks' fault.
that's what it is.
Absolutely.
And it is to do with the fact is, I remember seeing it on TV years ago. It was a news
Yep.
report, and they were talking to somebody in Cornwall, and they were talking to a fisherman. He'd just come off the boat, and they were asking him about, I think it was years ago, it was when they were actually talking about the EU getting fishing rights and the thing, and they were talking to him, and they go, and you can see the girl going, as if to say, what the hell did he just say? Because I asked him a question, and he answered it, but most people watching it didn't understand it because he's had a very strong Cornwall accent.
Yeah.
And it was just funny to see someone sort of interviewing someone, they have no idea what they're talking about. Whereas the guys obviously understood what she said, gave his answer, but
I mean,
it was mostly unintelligible.
Yeah.
Cornish as well, of course. He might well have been down at Cornwall. He might well have been putting a few words of Cornish rather than English, because Cornish, I think Cornish is, I believe Cornish is another Celtic Gaelic language, or the remnants of a Celtic language.
It could be, because well, you think about it, just around the UK, how many variants of that have you got?
Yep.
Well, I mean, if it's the whole thing with Celtic, of course, is the Celtic, in the Celtic language in general are the, historically speaking, not using the word in any way denigratingly, are the remnants of the Brittonic language that was pushed aside when the Romans invaded.
Mm-hmm. And then it's obviously been anglicised, and then it got the Norman invasion. It's amalgamation.
Yeah.
English is an amalgamation of all the other languages. However, as you said, the fringes got pushed out to the side.
Yeah.
So you had Wales, you had Ireland, you had the north of Scotland, you had Cornwall. It was all the...
And Scotland and Ireland, of course, kept their languages because they were never conquered by the Romans.
Yeah, that's because we built a wall and let the Romans take the credit.
Exactly. Twice.
Going back to Cornish, do you remember the comedian Jethro? God bless him.
Yeah, I've got Jethro. Believe it or not, I picked this up. This is actually it was going to go on my Saturday stream. Where is it? Yes. There is it.
Yay!
I picked that up, and I was on my Saturday stream for my pick of the week, because I got that at the charity shop at the weekend. So yeah, Jethro, I love Jethro. But fun stuff.
Some of the language he was coming out with, I frankly couldn't understand most of the jokes, but later on, now I can really understand it.
Oh yes, I remember seeing him. Oh, you're talking about years ago when I first saw him.
Yeah.
It was when the... what was it he was part of? I can't even remember. He was part of the folk scene, I suppose. He used to do the songs as well, rather than just tell the jokes.
Yeah.
I got a brand new combine harvester, and it's basically used to
did
hear
he
all
do
that. You're
that?
sitting there going,
No, that
he
was
didn't,
the
but it was round about the same time he came out. You had a lot of that, so you used to hear it, and then you were going, "What are they saying? What are they singing about?" Now, because it becomes easier to understand because it was more prevalent. But when it first came out, you're sitting there going, "What's he saying?" And that's like that song I just heard, and it's like this comedian and that, and it because they become more, you understand it more. It's the same as people said that about Billy Connolly. Did they
Yeah,
understand Billy Connolly? Still Game, Rab C. Nesbitt in
good
Scotland.
point.
When they were actually broadcast in England, they put subtitles on it
I know.
because people wouldn't understand Scottish. Whereas now, these things are broadcast. Still Game, which is hilarious, has actually become more famous globally since Squid Game. Because people were typing in Squid Game to find it on YouTube. They were coming up with Still Game, they were watching it and falling in love with it. But they didn't need to actually have subtitles on it because they understood it was
They
although it had a
understood more
Scottish
the
twang,
concept. And
they understood it.
that is something on the other end of the scope. So if you take Eddie Izzard and Stephen Fry,
Yep.
absolute brilliant command of the British language.
Oh,
It's like them, hate them, love them, whatever you do. They are very, very good at using the English language.
oh yes. I saw Eddie Izzard when I was in Moscow, and he was learning Russian. So the next time he came over, he could do it in Russian. His stand up, and considering the way he does his stand up, he can flow backwards and forwards when he's telling a story, and it can flow. You imagine he's going to learn a new language to do his set, which it's not as if he's going to do it by rote. It's just going to be he's going to wander in another language.
Yeah, and you
The way he does
have
in
to have
his
those
British
southern
language.
innuendos, those double entendres,
Yep.
knowing
Yep.
exactly what they mean in that specific language. It's
Exactly. So
brilliant.
that's what he was planning to do for his second trip over there. And I thought, wow, there's an intelligent man. Very intelligent in the use of language. As you said, Stephen Fry as well. His use of the English language is when he stopped in QI, that's when it actually went downhill for me because he
Yep.
was superb. He could
Can't
nail
watch them.
all
Actually,
these
yeah.
bits. Sandy Torsvig was okay, but she was better as a guest than a presenter.
Well,
And yes, she's as intelligent, but she's not as.
I think there was the playoff between Sanwick and
Alan Davis.
Stephen. Alan Davis as well, but I think it was
Yeah.
like just the group dynamic, the chemistry that actually drew people in rather than actually the topics. Because let's face it, most of us that have watched QI, we realized just how bad our education was.
Well, anyway, I'm going to bring up a clip for you to watch. Who's familiar with Stanley Unwin?
I recognise the name, but Stanley
Okay.
Unwin.
Well, I could tell you, but then I'd have to get the Secret Service on you.
You were froze there for a second.
I said I'd have to tell you, but then I'd get the Secret Service on you. Well, that's a Joey Anderson joke.
Okay, here we go. A clip from Stanley Unwin. Trying to tackle Mastermind.
Your name, please.
Oh, yeah.
World Supper. Your chosen subject. The life of Weber. Mr. Thuppersnail, your chosen subject, the life of Weber, begins now. What was Weber's full name? Karl Maria Friedrich Ernst Freiherr von Weber. Correct. What relation was Constance Weber, who ultimately became Mozart's wife? She was Weber's uncle's daughter, and she married eventually Mozart, but who Mozart first caught Aloysia, who was Weber's daughter's sister, and consanguine. Oh, correct. Consanguine plus removed blood related uncle and true What did Fritz, who was Weber's brother, say about Weber's early musical ability? Fritz said, Karl, you're a musician, you will never in the whole wide world, the month of Sunday, please, in writing across it in the staves and the cliffs stage tonight. No. Correct. Name two of his most famous operas. Der Freischütz, the most famous, and Oberon, King of the Fairy Load, which later on mentioned very much from Shakespeare, Midsummer Night. Correct. What is the meaning of Der Freischütz? Marksman or shoot into the gold target. I can't accept that. It may be marksman, but it's take a beady eyeball and loll up the target right smackaroo in the midload of the target in there. What was Goethe's opinion of Weber? Oh, Goethe, slightly professional jealousy of the lyricist or poet as he greatly was, underestimating Weber's thoughts of the grand opera, Proggery of France and Milano. But with the German, he didn't realize Weber precursed the grand opera, which led to Wagner's St. George and the Ringgold and that. Correct. What happened in Leipzig in 1813 regarding Weber's reception in that city? Oh, Leipzig very coldly received the heretofore, but suddenly with their frighteous successmo, embraced and warmly cuddled Weber's come through for, rather like the Manchester Sydney goal scored Keegan for a up jump and kiss and deep joyful. Correct. What was Weber's connection with the royalty of the day? And you may answer. He tutelaged for the Duca's children of the violin teacher and scrape of Stradivari, Cremoni, and Huffalo dabbed the keys of piano, 5-finger exercise the children's teacher. Correct? He taught them music. Mr. Thuppersnell. Now, with our grateful thanks to the hospitality of the University of Yentegerachtarov, we transfer you over to the rotating cyclone centrifuge optica node.
Believe it or not, I actually watched Carry On Regardless about 3 weeks
Yeah.
ago. It's superb.
I've got to say about Stanley Unwin, I've been trying to learn Unwinese for years and I still
I
can't
would
wrap my head
love
around it.
to be able to do it. The nearest I get to is if I'm having a hypo and try to explain things to people, and it just
Mhm.
basically know that I've no had the figure, no idea, and it's stuff like that, and it's basically
Yeah.
it's nothing anything where you could understand part of what he was saying. Like for instance, he threw a football reference in there, Kevin Keegan.
Yep.
But you could understand parts of it, and you could understand sort of where he was going, but it was just utter gibberish.
I just like the word he comes out with, like deep joy, most of the time.
Uh-huh.
And I'm
Yep.
still trying to figure out what deep joy means. It's either like pleasant or
Yeah.
he's very happy.
I didn't
That's what it
realise.
is.
I didn't
the guy-
realise that was a Stanley Unwinism.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
I didn't realise it's deep joy myself. I've heard it so often.
deep joy
Usually
is basically
sarcastically.
he would say, "Yeah, I'm happy with that." It would be deep joy,
Yeah.
and it's that type of thing. So yes, it was happy, or he's pleased, or okay. So it was an unwisdom, and he was just superb.
I've heard it used, that particular one used more sarcastically, as in, you know, someone said, Doctor Who's on. You know, it's Chimbal's Doctor Who. Oh, deep joy.
Yeah.
You know, you use that kind of
But
sarcastic.
that also, you have that anyway. That is I suppose, the sarcasm aspect of it. It's Chibnall's Who's on. Oh, great. It's like they say, you can't make two positives make a negative.
Yep.
Aye, sure. That's too positive. They just made a negative. It's all to do with the inflection. So it's the same as an unwisdom. It's that type of thing. You're taking he's taking the language, messing it around. It's the same as, like I said, Norman Collier, where he would drop certain parts of it. I've always tried to do that, and I could never do it as well. But
you do have the simplest one that everybody can say. The too positive that is probably not as positive as it should be, which is yes, dear.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's the same as they did that. The first time I heard that one was it was a Scottish comedian. He says he was actually doing a show, and he was telling people all about maths and how you can't. There's no such thing as two positives making a negative. And he says from the audience, somebody shouted, "Aye, right." And he's basically his act ended there because nobody could take him seriously because there was too many people laughing at him, not laughing with him.
Yeah.
It's
And it's
weird.
that aspect of it is a language. It just shows you there's a too positive. You're not being negative at all. But
it's weird though, you saying that. It's weird. It just struck me that positives reinforce. Right? So yeah, right, it's reinforce it. But as we all know, negatives don't. So no, never, not never means ever. You do it two negatives together,
yeah,
and they cancel each other out.
Yeah, double
Yeah.
negative is a positive,
Double-
but a
double
double
negative
positive
positive,
is never a negative
Yeah.
until you go, aye, right.
Yeah, but if you say that, right, half the time you are actually reinforcing it, whereas a negative for some reason does. It's weird.
Yeah,
Mm.
it is.
Yeah,
It's,
it's
but
just
what does it come back to? The use of language.
Yeah.
No matter what you think me. So when they're talking about it, they're saying two negatives can't make a positive, and all that, and they're using maths. But when they try and actually transpose it, it doesn't work
Yeah, 'cause-
because language is so versatile.
Language
You can
is
make
alive.
anything mean anything.
yeah, language isn't math, so
Yeah.
Language is a living product.
Yeah.
It will ever change. It will ever adapt. It will make new meanings.
Yeah.
It's the same as I saw one. It was a swear word one. So I'll not do it. But it's somebody says you can't make a sentence up using just swear words, and somebody says "f the effing effer." That's a sentence with the
Yep.
swear word 3 times, but you knew exactly what it means.
Mm.
And it's that type of thing where you could take language and make it mean what you need it to mean.
But
Comedians are
I
perfect at that.
will say you have used the most versatile word in pretty much any language on the planet, because everybody have the F word from the English language. Russians have it, the Icelandic, even the people in Greenland, the Eskimos and everything.
Yep.
The people that live like east of New Zealand, like smack in the middle of the ocean, they use the word the same way. And it can be used in both positive and negative ways.
Mhm.
It's a bit of a curse word, but I probably see it more because English is a language I'm very good with, but it wasn't the first language I learned. So I can't call it my native tongue, even though I'm probably fairly fluent in it. And it's the fun thing to see the certain ways different words are used. So there's a W-A-N-K, but let's see if I remember. And there is another word. It means exactly the same thing. I keep forgetting what it is, but both these words are sort of the same.
Begins with
But-
a T.
Yeah, TOSS.
Yeah.
According to your Witcher. But both those words are sort of the same meaning. But when do you use them? When do you apply which one?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
Also-
how you actually say it's who says it and who they say it to determines what it is, the connotations behind it.
Exactly, and
it
the
is-
level of friendship as well.
Uh-huh.
People that have been friends for 30 years, they use these words as good morning.
Yeah.
I just want to bring up one word. We're never going to learn what smeg really means.
It's another universal word because
I
smeghead.
know. I know.
It means a toaster maker.
I know it's a toast and a fridge.
It's basically is a brand name. How
Yeah.
how that didn't actually somebody turn around and go, hey, they're using our brand name as a bad word. They probably actually saw it and goes, excellent.
yeah,
To me, I would have been contacting them and going, do you want to use some of our products?
I do like the way Doug and Rob wrote the characters from Red Dwarf 6, the Gelfs, and trying to do the language for that.
And
And
accordingly,
write it into the script.
was very, believe it or not, pedantic about it, because and Robert was basically saying, I saw one of the interviews, he says that when he's translating, he was giving it the and then Robert going, no, you have to say and he's going, but it's basically made up, and he's saying but you have to say it like this, and they were very picky about it, and I thought it just goes to show how they've basically translated it for themselves, and they're getting you to translate it, and you're sitting there thinking, yeah, it's made up, but they've got it, the understanding what it is that they're pushing it. So yeah, the Kimawatawi.
The one thing I do like sometimes is where you get these like films and TV programs that are trying to make up alien languages, and sometimes
Fuck
you
off.
just look at it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
What a
when
load
you're
of
saying
felder
that-
garb.
Yeah.
It's the only one I can think of actually that does it.
There is a lot. It's some of it works, some of it doesn't, because the ones that don't understand it, like you've got the ones who did understand it. Gene Roddenberry, he's
Yeah.
Klingon. He actually, so when they were doing it, they were using it, and to the point where they could actually teach Klingon as a language.
Well, they
Because
got a
when
language
they were-
expert in to write it. It's
Yeah.
actually written by Mark Cochran.
But that's what I'm saying. So the fact is, it was done right that when they were using the language, they weren't a case of, right, you have to make it sound like this. So they were just doing speeches going, and it meant nothing. Whereas they were using the similar pronunciations of certain things to mean the same. So they had an understanding. Whereas you could watch an alien one and there'll be two aliens talking to each other and they'll go, and you're sitting there thinking there's no structure to it.
Yeah.
So it's just somebody making words up to make it sound alien. But if you're using the same sounds throughout the whole thing, how can that be a language?
But there have been instances, to jump ahead a little bit, Mars Attacks.
Yeah.
That's clearly just made up, but they do have those pauses, intonations, rising at the end. So it sounds a little bit like they are communicating. But if we look at someone like Roddenberry, he grew up next to other giants like Tolkien, who came up with a complete own language just to fulfill all of his sagas, the mythology behind it. He grew up with people that could do that. So he had them next to him. But if you look at the people writing scripts today, they had Google Translate. That was it.
Or they basically write a story saying two aliens said, make up words.
Technobabble,
Yeah.
Improvise.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's a case of, and as soon as you see that improvised, there's no structure to it. So when you see two aliens in a movie, and when they're talking to each other, even though it's made up, but if it looks like it's structured, so like they're using similar words when they're talking about something, then you can see there's a structure behind it. Somebody's thought, right, when you're doing it, you do it like this. Not just say words, and doesn't matter if you say the same words or like you go TV and the other one goes TV. Whereas if one goes and the other one goes it, and they're two different words, but they're making the same thing because they're pointing to the thing and talking about it. Whereas when somebody's told to improvise it, they're making up different words for the same thing, and that's when it doesn't work. There's no structure to it, and I think things like Roddenberry and other ones like who have done that type of thing work because they understand language. Because Roddenberry was a police officer, but I think was it New York he was a police officer in, which had a lot of immigrants. So he understood that people have different languages and its structure. So even if you couldn't understand the person, you could understand the inflection. So if somebody comes up and they're talking really fast, something's wrong. So they know they want you as a police officer to come and help them. Not just coming up and asking for directions, that type of thing. So it was all to do with inflection, even if you didn't understand the language, it was to do with that.
I think it comes to delivery as well. If you've seen behind the scenes of Lord of the Rings, Viggo Mortensen actually sat down every single moment he had. He was either reading the books or going through literally the what you call them, the syllabuses of learning Sindarin. So not the dark tongue. He actually learned the proper words that belong into the Elven language. And I believe Tyler did the same thing. Liv Tyler. She did the same thing just to be able to talk to him in the language.
Mm-hmm.
And that made it so more come alive, because if you just read, oh, that's my line, and I stumbled halfway through with that, Cuts,
Yeah.
that's fine enough. We'll keep it.
And there is other ways of doing it as well, because some people do it. You look at Laurel and Hardy, when they were doing one and they wanted to do it, they didn't actually just do the one sketch and then they got it dubbed over. What they would do is do the same sketch 3 different times. So they would do the one in English, then they would have somebody actually translate it, and then they would actually learn it rote. So they were basically they didn't understand the words they were speaking, but they learned basically somebody gave them the lines as they were doing parts of the sketch, and that's how they did it. So they did the sketch again in German, then they did the same in French, and anywhere else it was going to go, they did that. So anytime they wanted to do one, it was just dubbed over. They did it by just doing it by rote. Didn't understand what they were saying, but they knew the English equivalent, so they knew the inflections where they had to put the bits, and that's a way of doing it. So they didn't have any understanding. They were just given a script, and they basically worked out where somebody had actually worked out for them what they have to put the inflections in when it means compared to English. So it's different ways of doing it. Whereas nowadays you can see it, they'll record it and then they'll just dub over it. You look at the classic Chinese or Japanese movies when they were dubbed. The what was the guy from Police Academy? Remember? That's right.
Michael.
Jonesy.
Jonesy, aye, Jonesy. Because remember, he would just do occasionally when he was doing his Japanese, he would give it to this man. It's doing nothing to me, and it was that because he was taking the Japanese dubbing or the Chinese dubbing, whereas they would actually have a big long speech, and the guy would go, "Yes." And so
Yep.
we understood that that's getting dubbed. It's not the guys are doing it rote again, whereas they would redo it. I grew up watching things like Monkey and stuff like that. I understood that were dubbed. I wasn't sitting there thinking, these guys are really good at English. It's dubbed
Yeah.
because they translated it over. It's the same as if we were sending stuff to different countries. It's going to be dubbed because you don't expect them to understand English. Why should they?
Well, I will say recently I've seen some fairly good anime coming out of Japan, Korea, but Asian region completely. Squid Game, stuff like that. They're starting to get really popular. So they've learned to get good dubbers or voiceovers that
Yeah.
can try to actually keep words, even though sometimes the words you hear sounds a little bit off. Is because they're trying to actually match the movement on the screen, and I think
Yes.
that's really impressive.
Yeah. The best one I ever saw of that was subtitled ones. You ever seen Flags of Our Father? You had the Flags of Iwo Jima and the Flags of Our Father. Flags of Iwo Jima was from the American side. Flags of Our Father was from the Japanese side.
Yeah.
And the first time I saw it, the first release, the person who did the subtitles, I don't know if they were just being malicious or they were literally told translate it word for word, and they did that. So there was a bit where the two guys are digging a trench. In the newer one, it's a case of we were just brought here to dig our own graves. That was it. That was the line which the subtitles give. They're obviously speaking in Japanese, but the very first time I saw it, it was this land that we were brought to dig these holes that we will eventually lie in. Somebody had put that across as the subtitles for what they had said. So they had literally taken it word for word what the guys had said in Japanese and just typed it out. And it doesn't work from an English side reading it, but for Japanese, if that's your formal language, it's understandable. It's the same as like the movie White Men Can't Jump. If you translate it to French and then translate it back, it's things like white men can't get it up because the language, there is no word. Like say for instance, white men can't jump, right? There is no jump, so it's the way it's translated. It is translated one way, but if you translated it back word for word, that's what it comes out as. Which shows you that it's all to do with the way the language is actually all intertwined. You need to actually understand the translation for things like that.
Trust me, it's wreaking havoc on being multilingual like I am. So all these new, shall we say, fancy words that are getting introduced that you have to try and learn because otherwise you will offend someone. When you translate it to your own language and then back in, it's like, that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. It has no structure, it has no meaning, it has no place, it doesn't belong.
Yeah, that's why Gaelic has not had a new word added to it for over 100 and I think it was 120 years. Because you look at it when somebody's speaking Gaelic, there's still words like fax, computer, telephone.
Well, it's amazing. I remember.
Alexa, shut up.
I remember many years ago. I was fortunate that I was not so much these days at my age. But I was when I was younger. I was quite good at languages. And I remember at one point I learning trying to learn Hebrew. What let me down was the reading and the writing rather than the actual words themselves. But perfect example, I remember the Hebrew for television and radio is television and radio. Literally, because the words are literally taken straight in because there are no such concepts. Hebrew doesn't have the root language to actually come up with that. So it literally brings them straight in.
It's as far as I understand, it's a similar idea to Gaelic languages. Modern languages adapt but if you've got a language, you can't add the current connotations into it because there's no building structure within like Gaelic, Hebrew, and stuff like that to build TV or radio because it's I mean that's the way I understood it, and I'm terrible. I mean, as I said, I keep on saying I'm Scottish and I barely speak English. It's because
But it's what I said in the beginning. I say the word sky, and instantly in your minds there are 100 different connotations to what would make up the sky.
Yeah.
You're going to come to the tarmac at Jalad at Tanagra.
Tarmac and Jalad at Tanagra.
That's the Star Trek Next Generation one. Whereas they were talking about it and they were talking about Romeo and Juliet on a balcony. That we know because we know Romeo and Juliet is a romantic scene. So you may take the connotation if they're talking about two people.
It's one of
the
my
Doctor
top
and
three.
Yaz at Tanagra on the balcony. You might understand the connotations that you're getting there. Whereas if somebody's never heard of Romeo and Juliet, that whole thing doesn't mean anything.
It's one of my top three, not just Star Trek. It's sci-fi in its whole. It's one of my top three because it's so clever.
Two Ronnies.
Okay, Colin. On widescreen. Go up.
All right.
I love the two Ronnies. I've got a couple of their DVDs as
I've
well.
got a song to share with you in a minute for you to listen to. About Colin, go ahead, come play it.
Hold on. I'll actually get onto it. So I'm actually on. Oh, flip. Sorry, hold on. I need to get back. Oh, there we go.
Oh, I kept saying the wrong thing. Hit it, fat belly. Right, here we go now. My cousin Pauline was a Tennessee queen, as pretty a critter as you've ever seen. But she was so dumb that no matter how she tried, when she opened her mouth, she put her foot right inside. We knew what she meant, we knew what she meant. We heard what she said, but we knew what she meant. She invited the preacher to her house, they say. She said, it's a party, I'm 19 today. Ma bought me a dress and a bonnet so cute. So come round and see me in my birthday suit. We knew what she meant, we knew what she meant. We heard what she said, but we knew what she meant. She went to a dance hall one night on her own, and she smiled at a young man who stood all alone. He remarked that he'd not had the pleasure before. Because she answered, come on then, let's get on the floor. Well, we knew what she meant, we knew what she meant. We heard what she said, but we knew what she meant. One day she went into a department store and she said to the guy who was stood by the door, I need some material to make a new belt. Perhaps you can tell me where I can get felt. Well, we knew what she meant, we knew what she meant. We heard what she said, but we knew what she meant. She said, I once met a guy with dark wavy hair, so we rushed off to Alaska for a quick love affair. But I came back disappointed with a cold and a cough. We were both frozen stiff and I just broke it off. Well, we knew what she meant, we knew what she meant. We heard what she said, but we knew what she meant. We knew what she meant, we knew what she meant. We heard what she said, but we knew what she meant.
See, Ronnie Corbett was the man behind those.
Yeah.
Because I know it sounds corny, but he was a cunning linguist.
He was. Well, I have that record about three foot away from me. Somewhere I've got that record.
Yeah. I've got a few of the two Ronnie stuff on my shelf of physical media. I've got, as you can see, I've got 3 shelves. I've got 5 of them, and they're all full with physical media. And everything that I've got is in front of all my physical media. So, as you can imagine, I do like my physical media. And I've got the 2 Ronnies. But Ronnie Barker was the one, because you look at a lot of his stuff, he actually does. He is good at tongue twisters. He's amazing at some of his sketches.
It's like that when we did the 2 Ronnies night at the Ronnie Barker tribute show, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
That was unbelievable.
Yep.
Like listening to what he was coming out with.
Oh, God, he was amazing.
Anyway, I'm going to have you, if you don't mind, listen to this song because this was brought up in QI and I hunted high and low for it. It's by a guy named Andrea Celentano. He's Italian. Now, if you listen to the song, we can discuss about it afterwards. So just give me a minute so I can bring it up and share. The thing is, I think he's taking it from Stanley Unwin because half of it's gibberish. So
probably Italian.
Here we go. Listen to the song.
Freezing cold in S92.
You're the cold maze, say one freezing cold in S92. All right.
We don't stay in the shoes and I will hold build the scene in a whole rate, maybe get the corner boss dying. Change the mind, begin to cold, baby, stay yet, Bill Joe. We don't stay in the shoes and I will hold build the scene in a whole rate, maybe get the corner boss dying. Well, it's the same right, you can't be seen. You know the song another just got pictures in. You the cover not choose no buying for not solo over home, but just getting not the cover no fine. All the difference is stand like the shoes go my man. You can trust to them not to call to radio girls. Oh, Sunday.
My eyes, says that, and he got some golden pizza. Eyes. You're the cold maid, say one freezing cold in S92. All right.
My eyes, mine senseless, and it also go with basil. Eyes.
Freezing cold in S92. All right.
Well, I should have sleeping at the kingdom of sin till I just an up and off whole had a good time. Let praise go. We just see him in the center and the shoes are come up in. This is 200 cars that number 4 was the guy to stay. My eyes, my translate. Ain't a hill so go and feels on eyes. You the call and made to say one piece in combination I do so alright. You know you not feel as you got them and don't. Let's leave it at that till I think yo.
I my senseless, and you got some COVID pizza eyes. You come and see one precinct calling it's not too so alright.
Sorry if it goes on for a long time.
And I know the
Yeah,
story
it does a
behind
bit,
it.
doesn't it?
I know the story behind it.
Leave it at that till I think yo.
Excuse me. And that's where it ends.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
Do you know what? Do you know what the
I don't
story
know the
behind
story
that is?
behind it. I don't.
The story behind this one, he's Italian, right? And
Yes,
he wanted to make a song that would be popular in America.
that's true.
So he listened to a lot of American, and he didn't understand English at all.
I know.
So what he did was he said what he thought was English words. It'd be like me saying to you, sing a song in Italian. You
Yeah.
don't understand it. You don't know Italian. Just make up the words.
I do
So
your
you
Latin.
make it sound like Italian, and that's what
Mm.
effectively he did. He made it sound what he thought was English.
And the thing is, I've got the lyrics here, and half of it really doesn't really make sense.
It's because he didn't understand it. He was just making words up based on what he'd heard in other songs, and he didn't understand half of them, so he was making his own words up.
I don't, the way I like it with that, I just like the rhythm of the song.
Uh-huh.
That's what I like.
Yep. It was a song basically, he had the music and he was trying to put an English song to it and he didn't understand the language. So it'd be like you actually saying, right,
Yeah.
if it's an Italian song, I don't understand Italian, so I'm just making up Italian words and throwing them in there based on what I've heard other people say. And it's that type of thing. That's what he did. And I remember seeing that, and it was a good few years ago. There was a documentary and they were talking about understanding the language, and that was what it was actually on it. And I thought, that is just typical, just making up what you thought was English words based on what you've heard in other songs.
I just like it. Yeah, carry on, Colin.
I was going to say that language is weird like that.
Yeah.
One of my favourite examples. Actually, there is one person we have perhaps to thank for English being the way it is more than almost anyone else is King John.
Yeah.
That's a very strange thing for me to say that, but there's a very simple. The short version of that is until King John comes along, England and the western half of France are the same country. Most of the nobles have got lands in England Wales, and France. Mm-hmm. King John comes along, loses most of France, and the nobles have to decide which way they're going to go, and the language follows them. And that's when we get most of the English becomes more of a language. Before that, we'd had a split between English and French. My favourite example of that is food. If you think if anybody knows, most people in England probably took French at school. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it's like in Scotland. Jim, I don't know what your
Spanish, German, or French was the three options.
Right, because in down it, I mean, I don't might have changed now, but I've done Spanish and I've done all three actually, but I've done English, French, and German. But if you think for your food, most of a lot of the words for the food on your plate, when you actually get the food, the processed food, are French or French in derivation. Beef being the obvious one, beef, beef, etc. Chicken, poulet, etc. Right?
I think
but the words
means
for
egg, or is that beef?
But the word
earth is egg, yeah.
But the words, I mean, but the words for in general, it's not a hard and fast rule, and it has changed in the last 600 years. But the word for the animals is Germanic, Anglo-Saxon, pig for pork, horse, cow, coo, etc., because on the food on the table, the people that spoke French didn't care what the words were for the animals. They didn't need to know what animal their birth came from, so they didn't need to learn it. John loses most of France to say they need to learn it. But one of the funniest things I think that I heard is the way things translate from one language to another when they do. This is another one of my one of the things I'm really interested in is burgers. Literally, a burger.
Yeah.
Is a councilman. Back to Jim's ombudsman. A burg. It's a citizen, a person from a city. A burg. But we picked up. I think where we picked up was Hamburg comes in, and Hamburg is a dish from the city Hamburg, right? And it's actually not a hamburger. Actually, doesn't have ham. It has beef. But we picked it up, and the way the English language works, English recognize the word ham. So, okay, food. We don't know what burgers.
It's like the German sausages. They have names after the cities where they actually were so-called invented.
Exactly. Yeah. But what happens? So what happens is, I mean, the word burger, as for a citizen, a councilman, has sort of gone out of use. It's retired, if you like, from the English language. So by the time hamburger comes in, English recognizes the word ham, so it thinks, okay, the logical conclusion therefore is a hamburger must be a burger of ham.
That's when you get people, they still argue about it. Is it a hamburger or is it a beef burger?
Yeah, but
it's a beef burger, it's just called a hamburger.
Oh, it gets better, because if I remember this story correctly, it gets way better than that. Because you go down, so we get burger comes in, and then you get a chicken burger comes in, or a meat burger, or a veggie burger, none of which have been anywhere near Hamburg.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the last word, veggie burger.
Yes, apparently it's something that apparently
it's made from vegetables, or it's made from vegetarians.
I would say, yeah, it's made from real vegetarians.
Yeah.
But the thing, and you stick a cheese on it, and it becomes a cheeseburger. But where that gets really weird is apparently, and the way I heard this a little while ago, and I think it was John McWhorter, who's an American linguistics professor, who was telling this in one of his lectures or one of his books that I've got. It moves down to South America as the cheeseburger is the thing that moves down to South America. So, and they use cheese. So any burger in America is a cheesy in South America, whether it's got cheese on it or not. You go from a hamburger to a cheese.
Yeah.
Same thing. And any sort of burger is a ham cheese, or sausage cheese or whatever. And it's just the weird way language works.
But I think that is actually a fair point. Something I really like, and I shouldn't have too much of, and I have not been to the genuine location, but it is a Philadelphia cheesesteak. And if you're a local, and I've learned this without even being there, if you're a local and you go into one of these famous Philly cheesesteaks joints, you need to know the lingo, the language, so you don't embarrass yourself. So you just go in and say, whiz-whip. That means you're having steak, cheese, and fried onions. They know exactly what it means, but you just say whiz-whip. It's not with an H at the end. It's whiz, W-I-T. You don't have the H. It's not a with. It's a wit. But it's local to them, and that is why I'm not sure if it's a food they really invented, but they definitely coined it, just like McDonald's claimed to have done the first burger chain. That actually happened by the Vikings again about 60 years prior, and it's called Sibylla, after the Princess Sibylla of, I'm not sure if it was Norway or Denmark, but she was a fairly cute looking one. Everybody wanted to honor. And they actually had...
Did she not actually star in Surprise, Surprise? Oh no, that was Sabala Black.
No, but it was still fairly impressive, because back in the day they didn't have like, oh, we can do a 2-hour poll on Twitter and see what people want to name this boat. Boat to my boat things. They actually had it through the local papers and everything. We have a really famous restaurant, but the restaurant doesn't have a name. It serves burgers, but we don't have a name. So the public actually got to vote, and they voted for Princess Sibylla. So there is a Sibylla food chain, and it exists in the Nordics. I believe some European countries have it, and it's extremely popular in Asia. They actually have it down there, and it does exactly the same kind of food. Fast food burgers, fast food hot dogs, the same thing.
But anyway, Jim, I was going to ask, can you introduce this song, what it's about, before I play it?
All right, so this is a cheeky, fun song, and PJ, seeing that you will have a very young, easily distracted individual in your life very soon, this will probably be something they will be playing on repeat.
What do you mean very young, easily distracted? Have you met me? I'm easily distracted.
I'm sorry, who are you? But this was a counter-protest song-ish, because there was always the fabricated industrial top 10 songs playing on the radio every single weekend. So the group behind this, Karamba, decided they wanted to just make a nonsense song, use some of what was actually popular back then. So riffs, chords, cheeky music, high pitch, chorus and all that. But it is absolutely gibberish. It means absolutely nothing. You can run this through Google Translate and say, please detect what language this is, and it will go, error 404 can't be found. It is just a cheeky anti-song, but people loved it so much, it actually topped the charts.
Well, I better play it so everyone can have a listen to at home. So here we go.
Nee, also,
I think I've heard this before.
Oh, good God, what is that?
Pure gibberish.
Bananas, bananas. Habba, habba, zoot, zoot. Oder habba, wat, wat. Havandan. Habba, habba, zoot, zoot. Oder habba, wat, wat. Oh, man, man. A doo-deppa, doo-deppa. A doo-deppa. Havandan. Bananas, bananas. Doo-deppa, bandan. Colli, colli, habba, habba, zoot, zoot. Oder habba, wat, wat. Bagga, bagga, doo-da-da. Doo-deppa, doo-deppa. Aha, doo-deppa. Aha, da-da-da. Habba, habba, zoot,
But this is also something that we talked about a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
That was actually improvised on the spot when they made the re-recording. They didn't have lyrics. They were just going in. We have hubba hubba, zoot zoot,
Yeah.
and bananas. Make up the rest.
Yep. That looks like it's I suppose like the 9 o'clock news type
Yeah.
of program, something like that, where they do sketches, and that was like one of the sketches they did, and the song came from that. That's what it looks like based on some of the images on that. But you look at even some of the UK big type of programs like that, not in 9 o'clock news. They did stuff like that, but look at some of the songs they did. Some of them they nearly never got away with.
Nice
It's the
video
same
showing
idea. They're
about the
taking
song.
words and twisting them to
Yeah.
mean something different.
That kind of reminds me of what is it? You've heard of the Baronites?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what it reminds me of in a way. And the Baronites were complete geniuses when they come
They
to
were.
writing
They
songs,
could
yeah.
actually take the Queen songs.
Yeah.
And I remember the one, Mama, I just killed a man. I sat
Yeah.
upon his head. Very soon he was dead. Oh, Mama, I'm so overweight that when I
Yeah.
walk, I leave it all behind.
Oh,
Baronites,
PJ, you have to remind me to send you a. He's sort of ish a celebrity. He's done. I think his IMDb credits is something like 450 voiceover for cartoons over the last 3 decades. But he formed a band doing cover songs, but just not doing cover songs, actually mixing, perfectly and fluently mixing 2 very popular songs and doing it in like the 80s rock and roll style. And it is gorgeous. One of my favorite is the combination between Enter Sandman from Metallica that came out in 86, I believe. And then you had Journey, Don't Stop Believing, which
That's
was
right.
89, and just blended them together. And it just sounds amazing.
Yeah. But now the Barron Knights used to do it, and they were amazing at some of the stuff they did.
Yeah.
Because I still remember as I said, the Queen one they did, and that was, I must have heard that about 20 years ago. And it still
Boy
sticks with you.
Scouts out camping.
What was that other one? The Smurfs jumped over the wall or something? It's about aggro, I think that was.
Yeah, I go Boy Scouts out camping.
Yeah. Done one called Gobbledygoo. I vaguely remember that. What was that other one they did? Call Up the Groups. No, yeah, so they have that one. It's just they did one that I found funny. You remember you've heard of a song called "And Then You Kissed Me," right?
Yep.
Well, they remixed it and called it "And Then You Kicked Me." So the thing is about like the way words are used and everything, right? But today I'm still trying to wrap my head around what people are using words today in like texts and all this and that.
Yeah,
I still can't really understand it.
I must admit, I'm still a wee bit old fashioned when it's like that.
Yeah.
If somebody texts me and says it's great, GR8, I always reply back with like a question mark.
Was that
It's
in
just
high
because
code?
I get annoyed. I know that what they're meaning, but sorry, it's the same as Xmas. I hate writing Xmas on I hate Xmas on a Christmas card. It has to say Christmas
Yeah.
because Xmas means nothing,
No,
and it's that type of thing.
you'll
I'm
get happy
old-fashioned in that respect.
Xmas in a WhatsApp message from me, but if I send you a postcard, it will be capital C Christmas.
See, basically every time I'm doing it, it's always Christmas. I never use Xmas because it's to me it's a made up word. But it is that type of thing. It's the same as text. Lol.
Oh yes.
People say lol.
Yeah.
Lol just means laugh out loud. They laugh, then they say lol.
Yeah, the people that says
Just
lol
laugh
instead
out
of laughing, they should be shot on sight.
Yeah, exactly. It's things like that. It's the things are changing. So like people will actually. It was. I'm trying to remember who it was. It was a comedian who was talking about it initially. Is people actually now say things like "lol"? They laugh, then say "lol," and it's a case of they're just laughed out loud. It could have been Ricky Gervais, or it could have been Peter Kay, because I know he's done ones where he's done listen to these songs. And does that no sound like it changes the whole connotation because he says a word and you listen to it and you hear that word and it changes the whole connotation of the song based on that one word. And I'm sure it could have been one of his sketches and he was talking about how language people actually say words that don't mean anything. So they'll laugh and then say lol. You just laugh, you don't need to say it. Because people have written in text, they do it now as if it's a word.
I'm just wondering, how long is it going to be until people will start like talking like through emojis instead of actual words?
Do you know what to look under? The two Ronnies.
Yeah.
The sketch for simplified spelling. It was they were actually the sketch was about the I think it was the it wasn't the department, it was the Society for Simplified Spelling, the CCC. And it was all about how they wanted to change words because they wanted to make it easy to spell. So anything it was like when you were saying C, you didn't put SEA or SEE, it was C because it's simple to spell. And it's the two Ronnies did that. Ronnie Barker did it, and it was the Society for Simplified Spelling.
Yeah, but wasn't that the sketch where they were going? It's like, no, that might be later from maybe Castle or something, or that kind of era. So like 2010-ish. It's like, I see you. So what does that mean? You see me? No, I see you. Emergency. So they couldn't get the difference. But when you were asking the question, I forgot who it was, about the stop using language, have you seen how many people are glued to their phone just walking around or sitting on the tube nowadays?
Yep.
Yep. I mean, I'm addicted to technology. I admit, I will pick up the phone and it's like, so the restaurant I want to go to, it's over there, and then I look at the map and it's like, okay, 5 intersection across that road and then to the left, and then the phone is like back in the pocket.
Yeah.
So I will say I'll pull it out if I'm sitting at said restaurant, waiting for the order to come. I might pull it out and it's like, oh, something latest on the news or something interesting. Check my email. I admit I will do that, but I don't cross the road. I don't walk up to like an intersection where it's like traffic lights and everything. It's like, oh, everybody else is walking, I'll walk.
What town is it in Europe that they're actually putting traffic lights on the pavements because people are walking with their heads down? It's so they can see they're at a road. So there's the red lights and all that on the pavement so they don't step onto the road.
Actually, I think we had a good solution to shortage there. Seeing eye dogs. These people would be perfect for it. Well, ish. I'm certain there will be some trial and error like a Tesla car, but seeing that they can navigate seemingly a major city, all you need to have them in a harness, and a blind person can just walk behind.
There's one bit of technology which would solve this problem. stop blaming the motorists if somebody's on their phone walks
Yeah.
straight onto the road.
Yeah.
Just simply don't blame the motorist. If somebody is so careless about their own life that they don't pay attention, how can you blame somebody else for that? And that's the thing.
I have something in this area where I live. We have tons of red kites, and we have some really big ones, really gorgeous red kites. And they're hovering low over the rooftops and everything. You can see them very clearly, but I doubt most of the people walking on the streets down below everything, they've never even seen a red kite.
They've never seen the sky because they're always looking down.
There was. I remember there was a thing a while ago where there was people were doing this, a suggestion to put padding or something around lampposts and the like because people get walking into them. And I can't remember, but someone said no, do the opposite. Put spikes on the damn thing.
Yeah. Stephen Fry did that. He says the best way to stop car accidents is don't put airbags, don't put roll cages, put a big spike in the steering wheel. You can guarantee there'll be less accidents because people will be driving looking at that big spike knowing if I go over 30 miles an hour and I get hit, that's going to do me. Not an airbag, so if I'm travelling at 90 miles an hour, that's probably going to save me.
Yeah.
Stephen Fry did that on one of his Q&As. He was talking about put a big spike, that'll cut down car accidents. And it is, if you make something that safe that people think, I'll survive it, they're not going to actually worry. It's how many times have you been in a car speeding, but if you're in a car and you've got kids, you drive normally because you know it's not your safety, it's their safety. So you always drive better when somebody else is in the car. But when you're in the car on your own, you don't think about that because it's you're dealing with it. You think about your car's got all these safety features, but because there's kids or other people in your car, you think about other people, so you drive a lot safer. It's crazy. We all do it. Even if it's only 5 miles over the speed limit, we all do it to an extent because you're driving in the conditions of the road. You don't think about, oh, you should only be doing 30 here or 20 here or whatever. But when you've got kids in the car, you're very conscious of it because you know very well you might survive something, but they might not.
Yep.
And it is all to do with the way it's done. Language as well is a way around that. If you tell people, don't worry, it's safe, if this could actually survive if you crashed at 100 miles an hour. Oh, did it? No problem. Then I was only doing 90. It's that type of thing. If you tell someone something's safe at an experiential and then something happens, it's the same as in America, the guy who bought one of those Winnebagos.
Yeah.
And it had cruise control, so he pressed cruise control, went into the back, made himself a coffee, and he sued the company. He sued the company because it said cruise control. He thought that meant it could steer on the road. That's why now you've got things like does not drive itself or caution, hot coffee. When you go in and say, can I have a hot coffee? It says hot on it because people, they'll burn themselves, and because it didn't say hot, even if the girl in the McDonald's, she asked for a hot coffee
and
she
walked
liked
away
it hot,
with $1 million.
and she walked away, put it in her knee, in between her legs, and she was driving. She crashed her car, and it burnt all her thighs. And she sued McDonald's because they served her hot coffee that she asked for, but because it wasn't in a cup, it said hot. She got money. It's crazy.
There are several YouTube channels that are actually dedicated to silly warning labels, like "Do not put your baby in the microwave to dry."
Oh, God.
That means for the sign to have actually had to be put as a warning label, someone tried it. Someone had to try it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's a case of even if they've not tried it, they think people are stupid enough are going to try it unless they're told not to.
Yeah.
But no matter how foolproof you design a system, God will always create a better food.
I said that yesterday, Jim, when somebody was talking about can you make something idiot-proof? I says every time we make it idiot-proof, God makes a bigger and better idiot.
Yes, Roo.
And one of the girls was actually thought, I said, no, we use that all the time because it's true. no matter what you do, there's going to be someone who's stupid enough to do something and think it's somebody else's fault because they didn't use common sense.
Yeah.
And it's the fact is, the American system, unfortunately, allowed people to actually be that thick.
You see, since Mr. AWK here is being the wordsmith and writing down words on a paper, you used something that was kind of idiosyncrasy.
Yes.
I believe that's the correct word. Common sense is a very
Idiosyncratic,
uncommon,
Yeah.
uncommon thing.
It's an oxymoron. It's not common
Yes.
at all.
Yeah, it's not tomorrow.
It's extremely badly named. Yeah.
Yes, like military intelligence.
Hey,
Yep. Anyway, I think it's about time. Yeah, Carol.
No,
Carry
I
on,
was
PJ.
no, I was going to say is
Well,
the thing is with
Yeah.
the thing about language is it can guide people, but
yeah,
only if they've got the understanding to understand the basic concept of it. Because if you've got something and it says bend ahead in a car, you're driving in a car and it says sharp bend ahead, and somebody is still speeding up, then it doesn't matter what words are there. If they've not got this common sense to understand what it means, it's all to do with language. Language is okay to an extent, but people have to understand the consequences of language.
That's why
And that's what I was going to say.
that's why people try to when they want to change a society, they try to change the language so you can't act. So things don't mean what they used to mean. So you can't actually think. You can't actually communicate an idea if you don't know the words for it.
But if we say you four lot, I believe all four of you are native to this isle or these isles. If you change a word, and I've learned that through different schooling outside of the country, I'm coming in and you're using the word, I'm just going, inconceivable. I don't think that means what I think it means.
Yeah, you come in, you just learn the language, you go into the country, and they've changed it all.
Oh, I blame Michael Jackson personally. I mean, I used to know what bad meant.
You know why he called his album bad, don't you? Because he couldn't get utter crap on the actual album.
Didn't fit, they had to print off.
What can I say? But yes, but I enjoy language, and I enjoy jokes with the language. Two Ronnies is a perfect example of
That's
that.
true.
Ronnie Corbett and Ronnie Barker. Ronnie Barker is a wordsmith.
Yep.
Stephen Fry is a wordsmith. What was the other one? Come on, who's the other one?
Eddie Izzard?
Stanley Unwin?
Eddie Izzard is a wordsmith. You look at all these ones who take language and make fun with it. And all they're doing, I'm not talking about ones that will take it and change it, as in the Samuel. God, I'm terrible with that. Samuel thing, or Norman Collier, where they mess it around. I'm talking about ones that take the language.
Yep.
And
Stanley
use it.
Unwin, you meant? Yeah.
Yes. But it's ones that take the language and use it as it was meant to be used. But people, you can the English language is so versatile; it can change everything.
I mean,
And I like that.
As a historian, I understand the way language changes. I mean, prime example, I think, is words get changed. If I said to you, I've got a unit of 100 men and they've been decimated in battle, how many are left?
90.
Jim?
I would say decimated is definitely the 90% category.
So you reckon 10 are left?
Yep.
Louise? Oh, sure.
I don't know. The opposite, I would have thought, given the actual meaning of the word.
Yep. It technically 90 are left. Decimate means
but now you're saying Roman language with deci means 10.
Yeah, no, but
Yeah.
what I'm saying is that decimate literally means to, or originally meant to
1 in
kill
10.
1 in 10. But these days, a lot of you said it, the way it's used these days is changed so that in general
Make-
usage, it probably does mean, well, not necessarily 10% left, but it probably does mean a lot more than 10%.
Vast majority, I
Yeah.
suppose, is the best way of describing it. Decimate
Yeah.
means a vast majority die.
Yeah, you see, I use it more something along the line when ever I get the yearly bonus, the HMRC comes in and decimates me
Yeah.
with taxes. That's not a tenner. They don't take £10 out. They take more.
Yeah. As I said, I mean, I understand how language changes. Well, I understand that language change partly because it's another aspect of history that I find fascinating.
I will counter that, even though I'm no history master or anything. I love and I know we're gonna wrap up very soon. I like the American Civil War, especially a film that came out that was around Gettysburg, and the massive amount of numbers, and they're just from the understanding of the points where the generals were standing and everything. Yes, these were really clever moves to make and everything, but that was decimation. That was absolute decimation of an army that was literally crippled, unable to function properly after that battle. It wasn't just 10% died, it was a lot more.
Well, I think there is actually a very, very specific origin to that word. If a legion ran away, they were lined up on a bridge,
They were decimated.
went 1, 2, 3, 4. Every 10th man he pushed off the bridge.
Or he basically would put them into groups of 10, and 9 of them would beat one of them to death. There would be one stick, and everybody draw a stick, and the one that got the thingy got beat to death by his colleagues.
Yeah,
They
I
were
heard the
decimated.
gruesome story of draw a
Killing 1 in
straw.
10. Yeah.
That was.
Yeah.
Right, Colin, shall we wrap up the show?
Yep.
We've been going for nearly 2 hours. It sounds a good time to go.
As this is a recorded show, and it's not going out till the 1st of March, well, next week, we can't really say to Jim and PJ and Louise what you've got planned at the moment.
So we do the same things every week, so don't worry about it.
So thanks for coming on tonight, and it is great learning like new words and that, and you gave me a few ideas to like put into my second book when I get around to it.
Oh, great. Thanks.
Sorry, Colin. But all I can say is that everybody out there, we've learned quite a lot tonight. We've listened to a few songs, and also with the words like being played around and that, and also the master Stanley Unwing, and also talking about Ronnie Barker. It has been an absolutely fantastic night. That's all I can say. So, how shall we just end the show, Colin?
We might as well, I think.
So anyway,
in the chat, and it's good night from ladies first. It's good night from her.
Good night.
It's good night from. This is confusing. Everybody else as well.
From them. It's good night from her. And it's good night from them.
Good night from us. Them.
Okay.
Or
Take
as
care.
my preferred pronouns are, Your Highness.
Rawley Bell. Take care, everybody. We'll be back next month with some special guest star. Well, there's another podcast will be coming in to join us. Hopefully, once we get that sorted out. So, everybody out there, take care and feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And have a good week and month coming up. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.